welcome, and thank you for joining me today. I'm so grateful to have you here, sharing in this space of growth, healing, and transformation. If you've already subscribed to Loving Everything, thank you for being a part of this beautiful community. Your support means so much, and together, we're creating a space where love in all its forms can be explored and embraced. As you listen to this episode, if it resonates with you, I invite you to like the video and share it with anyone who might benefit from the insights we're diving into today. These conversations are all about expanding our capacity to love ourselves, each other, and the world around us. And if you enjoy what you hear, don't forget to explore my other episodes where we journey into love's deepest, most unconditional forms. Each one is an invitation to reconnect with the parts of yourself that are waiting to be seen, healed, and loved. So thank you for being here. Let's begin. So I've tried to do this podcast once before on Christmas Day in 2024. And because I was so nervous at the time, I forgot to turn on the sound over here in the studio. And so I never published that episode and what I shared on that day because you wouldn't have been able to hear me. Or not well. The sound would have not been very quality. So I am starting to realize that this has now become a little mini series of me sharing something that I committed to in this past year. And that's really been around dating myself. And I'm going to explain why and what that's looked like. But that's essentially led to me spending all of the major holidays this year by myself. And I've learned a lot and through that process. And so that's kind of what this is about. So a lot has even transpired since Christmas. From where I sit now, I have an even deeper awareness or understanding of the ancestral trauma that I carry from both sides of my family, my mother's side and my father's side. I've done a very deep dive into that this past year. A lot of grief. I've grieved quite a bit and overcome some major devastating experiences. And I've been processing a lot of grief from my childhood and tending to that with a lot of dedication and care this year. If you're new to me and you aren't aware of my story, I invite you to take some time after listening to me today, whenever this episode finds you, and to go read about me on my About page on Andrea.Love. For those of you who have followed and supported me for years, this is also for you. So I so rarely speak alone due to a history of trauma. Regarding being undiagnosed as a child for selective mutism, back when I was born in the 70s, in the early 70s, we weren't really big on personal development. The parents of Gen X are boomers, and so they really had a mentality of pull yourself up by your bootstraps. So we were raised, 3 daughters, we were raised to be very tough. And because of that, if you're not aware of what selective mutism is, I encourage you to go look that up. But it's more than just being shy. We'll just leave it at that. And through my mother's wisdom, her parenting style was to use the principles around what is probably more referred to as exposure therapy. And so she put me on stage quite often as a child so that I would overcome it or get over it, essentially. And that taught me to be very conflicted about who I was. I overrid my nervous system regularly to survive those experiences because I wasn't given a choice. And this left me paralyzed to be in front of a camera for most of my life, even though I have spent most of my life in front of a camera. In addition, I have worked for many years to overcome my shyness. I'm very introverted, and to learn how to regulate my nervous system. It's a lot of what I do now with clients, especially while I'm doing public speaking. That regulation, I'm referring to that because I finally realized that this shyness is a story that I have held about me my entire life, and only I have the power to change it. But I do have the power to change it. So if you see me looking down at my notes or reading from them, like I am right now, it is due to this past. And it also helps my undiagnosed ADHD brain keep on track for everything that I want to say and tell you. So the idea for this podcast came about because for those of you who weren't aware, in August of 2023, my 3-year divorce case was final. And I was married for 19 years, and in total, we were together for 22 years when I filed for divorce. At the same time, I had been seeing someone throughout my divorce, and both he and my divorce attorney, on separate occasions, suggested that I learn how to be single before I ever commit myself to anyone again. And so I took their advice. And almost a year ago, I committed to dating myself. I decided to pour all of the energy I had been giving to others into building a stronger relationship with myself. And through this journey, I learned some of the most valuable lessons about love, loyalty, and self-worth. I'm not saying that it was easy, and I lost a lot of people in the process. So now I am sharing what I learned with you. So first, I had to recognize what betrayal actually was and process the pain around it. So through dating myself, I faced some hard truths I had been avoiding about unhealthy relationships in my life and the patterns surrounding that. I gained incredible insight and clarity in my stillness and silence. I grieved for all of the self-abandonment that I put myself through. And I realized that all of the relationships I had surrounded myself with were avoidant attachment styles. And I had or have an anxious attachment style. I have been able to see both my father wounds through allowing men to control and emotionally manipulate me, like the men on both sides of my ancestry do with the women they partner with, and as well as with their children. I have been able to see my mother wounds, which have been passed down to me, specifically coldness, calculation, manipulation, competition, punishment, and abandonment when I disobey or defy expectations. It's clear to me now that I married someone who was my karmic partner and constantly reinforced my parents' shadow sides to teach me the lessons of self-respect, self-reliance, and trusting my inner knowing. Betrayal is a painful but necessary eye-opener that teaches us about the people around us. And betrayal isn't just something others do to us. Sometimes we betray ourselves by ignoring our needs, just to stay in the relationship. So it's really about acknowledging your emotions, but not allowing your emotions to control you. And recognizing that the pain that you feel from knowing the truth is temporary in this stage of your life or this chapter of your life. But at least now you know the truth, and you'd rather know the truth about that person. Not hide away from it any longer. And you learn through that process to trust your instincts and your intuition, because they often warn you about red flags before your mind or your emotions have the opportunity to catch up. So if you've been betrayed, if you've ever been betrayed, I'm so sorry for whatever you've experienced. And know it's incredibly painful. And so where do you go next? Well, first you learn how to raise your standards. And what does that even mean? Well, you learn how to use betrayal as an opportunity to reassess and elevate your expectations in your relationships. And so you spend time with yourself in order to show yourself how you deserve respect, kindness, and loyalty from others by giving it to yourself first. And in that process, it helped me redefine what I expected in a relationship, starting with that loyalty, mutual respect, and most of all, emotional reciprocity. And now I demand that from the people around me. I've been forced to prioritize relationships built on trust and shared values, and not allow everyone to have access to me in the same ways that they have in the past. So I used to be a very, very open person and share everything. I even have referred to myself as an open book, and I'm starting to realize that not everyone deserves that privilege, and not everyone gets access to knowing everything about me anymore. And that's about having better boundaries, healthier boundaries with myself. I wasn't raised to keep information away from the prying eyes of a mother who wanted to know everything about me all the time. So that's been a sharp learning curve. And this year has taught me that my time and energy are extremely valuable, and I will no longer settle for anything less than I deserve. And I made that promise to myself back in May, at the beginning of I want to say it was 66 days. I have to look on my Instagram feed, but it's there. I did a live on Lionsgate Portal in August, and I had been practicing a morning meditation that I put together for myself for 66 days, a certain amount of days. I practiced that every morning, and I even shared it with my therapist. I shared it with a couple of people that were close to me, including my best friend of 33 years from college. And so I was practicing that on a regular basis. And I also went to something called Spirit Weavers, which is in Southern Oregon. It's like 500 women, 2 different weeks. There's a sun session and a moon session every year. We all camp on ancestral land. There's arts and crafts and classes. And one of the earlier episodes with Andrea Bordeaux, that's where I met her this past year. She's on episode 42 if you want to check her out. It's called Embracing the Selfish Bitch. Anyways, during Spirit Weavers this past year, I was in a ceremony with a shaman who worked with the local tribe, the local Native American tribe, I want to say specific to the land in Grass Valley, if I'm not mistaken, and Grass Valley is in California. Anyways, she did a ceremonial practice with all of us that took her class. And we each had to make a commitment about the relationships in our life. And at that time, I committed to no longer settling for anything less than I deserve. And I remember somebody in the class, it was all women, someone in the class raised their hand and said, "How do I know that I'll be true to myself?" And she said, "Oh, you will." And I remember thinking, wow, that's like the biggest promise one of the biggest promises I've ever made to myself. So it was a huge turning point because I knew it was going to change all the relationships in my life. And it was scary and intimidating, I'll be honest. So now that you've redefined your boundaries and your friendships because of that commitment, you take a step back and you start to evaluate your social circle, the people around you, the people that you surround yourself with. They say, you are the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And I started looking at those 5. I don't even think it was 5 at the time, but the point is I started looking at the people that were the closest to me and what that relationship really looked like, honestly. And, in that process, it had me really reevaluate and start over in regards to the people that were in my life, and starting over with new people that genuinely support me, and just clearly seeing, honestly, who doesn't align with that anymore. I've been investing energy into those who reciprocate my kindness and my loyalty. I'm incredibly loyal and very generous. And so deeply appreciating then the true friends that are around me, and then remaining open to new friendships and new meaningful connections, reaching out of my social circle and expanding my reach to women around me that inspire me. And so I began that over the summer, cultivating a new community with higher expectations on that reciprocity. It had me realizing that being alone just means being intentional about my time and my investment in my relationships, male or female, intimate or friendship, and that I don't give my time away for free now. And that allows me to have even more time. And then through that process, then it allowed me to learn how to trust myself. I've had a lot of time to reflect on how my past experiences have sharpened my intuition or my intuitive abilities. Dating myself really sharpened my inner voice. It taught me to trust my own judgment. I learned to be loyal to myself first, because self-abandonment only leads to unbalanced and codependent relationships. And you could say that my past was filled with that. I learned that being loyal to myself is the foundation for healthy relationships with others. And I've really taken the time to heal and strengthen my foundation before giving anything to others. And instead of looking to others for the wisdom or answers that I seek, I only rely on my inner voice. And that was really big because earlier on, like in my marriage, I was very codependent in that relationship early on. And I was constantly looking for approval in that relationship. And I eventually grew out of that. But yeah, admittedly, it's been a process. So let's see. Next was reclaiming my personal empowerment and independence. I noticed that was kind of the next phase that I moved into. And so that had me shifting my focus from external validation to internal confidence. I really, really learned that, not only just in this past year, but also in the last relationship that I had. And I really grew my confidence. I learned a lot from that person about confidence, and I'm very grateful for that. But I've really been cultivating that. It was so missing in the first half of my life, more than half of my life. And I've been doing a lot of repair work around being complete and whole. I found that other people around me could easily see it before I could see it. And I've really worked to cultivate that on my own. I've also been cultivating independence emotionally, mentally, and financially. That's been huge. I have very strained relationships with my family. I have for most of my adult life. They live in a different state. We don't talk often. We don't see each other often. So, not having familial support is definitely a choice. I certainly have had their support at different times. It has been a conscious decision. It has always been a very challenging or difficult choice, just based upon the conditions that are set within the relationship, based upon relying on them, because my relationship with them or any person in my family has always been very conditional and very similar to my ex-husband as well. And that's, that's why I was probably attracted to that, or I shouldn't say probably, I was attracted to that. So let's see, where was I? Learning to trust myself. Okay. So reclaiming personal empowerment and independence. See, this is why I have notes. I treat my relationships as an addition to my happiness, not my foundation. So I learned this a while ago, but I've really been honing in on it in the last 10 years, you could say, recognizing that I am the prize, recognizing that I'm the cake and other people are the frosting, especially any partner that I have is really the frosting, or the sprinkles. But that I can't hold other people responsible for making me happy. That happiness really has to be cultivated within. And if
it's a difficult time in my life, or I'm presented with challenges that maybe 5 years ago I wasn't going through, it's really the work on my part to process that, to not expect somebody else to soothe that all the time, to do my best and do the work around whatever work internally that is coming up, so that I can be a better person to anyone who's in relationship to me. And taking ownership, really doing some self-reflection, and getting back to a state of balance. Let's see. Oh yeah. Recognizing that happiness comes from within. I said that, and not from external validation. And really that I have no control over other people or how other people view me. I've known that for a while as well. And that can be really, really difficult in moments of betrayal. Your ego might be screaming to be seen or heard, but ultimately, consciously recognizing that you seeing you and you hearing you is most important, because you only have control over yourself, really, and how you show up in the world. I've let go. I mentioned this earlier. I told you it wasn't easy. I've had to let go of any toxic connections, family connections this past year, even, and intimate relationships, friendships, or any situations, to make space for better opportunities. Now, in the past, if you had worked with me as a client even 6-7 years ago, I was really a proponent, even 3-4 years ago, I was really a proponent of maintaining healthy boundaries, but not cutting people out of your life, believe it or not. And it's not that I would have fought with you if you had been a client with me, if that person had really abused you and there was no way that you could find forgiveness. I do feel, and I would tell you back then as well as now, that forgiveness is your way through. Loving yourself in that moment. No one's forcing you to love that person, but loving yourself in that moment and being able to find forgiveness for yourself and for that person allows you to be able to release it finally and let it go, in a way that holding on to it, the burden of it, it weighs you down in so many ways. And so I was going somewhere with that, but ultimately letting go of relationships, letting go of things that you thought would be around, for reasons of recognizing that your needs aren't being met and that person just is not capable of loving you any more than they do, or treating you any better than they are capable of treating themselves. And that's hard. I had to do that in leaving my ex-husband as well, is recognizing that he was doing the best that he could. He kept promising more and under-delivering. So at a certain point, I had to recognize that it was just only words and not actions. And that's a difficult place to be. I haven't drank any of my tea. I am approaching change as a chance to rebuild a life aligned with my values and goals. As a Scorpio, which is a fixed sign, change has always been really hard for me. Scorpios, it's kind of a joke. Scorpios don't let go. They hold on until they get sick of something. I heard that, and it feels pretty correct or right on. So, really getting to a new chapter in my life and recognizing that change does mean the ending of some things, but it also means a new beginning, and a chance to rebuild a life that is more aligned with who I am now, not who I was last year or 2 years ago or 5 years ago or 20 years ago when I first met my ex-husband or whenever that was now, 1999. But, what is aligned with who I am now? I used to make this joke with my daughter and my ex-husband. I used to announce new rules. When I'd changed my mind about something, or when I had a new boundary, when I recognized that the boundary that I had in place wasn't working, I would say new rules. So I learned that from Bill Maher, if anybody knows who that is. But okay, so I've been reframing endings not as failures, but as transitions towards something even more remarkable, a new beginning. And this year, I allowed myself to start fresh and pursue goals aligning with my values. What were my core values? And so that included going on a trip to Capri and Sardinia, Italy, and Paris, France for the very first time in my life. And that was on my bucket list. And I just had never made myself a priority. I'd put other people first up until this past year. And so going on that trip was super special. There's some photos on my Instagram if you're interested. And then, I applied. This was a kind of a 2-year process. So I got into Portland State University, took some prerequisites, also was hired as a program navigator for Clackamas County, a local county here in Portland, Oregon, or nearby. And worked in that organization, Mental Health and Addiction of Oregon. I've brought on a couple of guests from that relationship, but either way, worked there, applied then to Lewis and Clark College, which is a local liberal arts school here in Portland, Oregon, that I'm getting my MA in counseling. And that has been a true dedication, a passion, something I'm incredibly grateful for, the process, the people that I have the opportunity to work with and learn from has been incredible. All of the people in my cohort I've learned a lot from. It continues to surprise and engage and inspire me. It is one of the hardest things that I've ever done. But I keep telling everybody that I'm building a legacy. I'm building my empire. I'm building this next chapter of my life, whatever that looks like, without, dragging any of the past that is no longer serving me with me. But taking the lessons more than anything from those experiences and incorporating them and applying them to my life now. Letting the negative go and taking the positive, having so much gratitude and humility for the experience of everything that I learned from everybody that's come before. All right, so next, I put down fumbling through healing and growth. And when I say fumbling, like healing and growth, it's not like a linear. If you haven't figured this out yet, it's not a linear process. It is a spiral, if anything, and you get to the same place, but you have a little bit more knowledge or wisdom from the last time you did it. And so I really find that life is like that, and sometimes it's like 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and you are making progress, but sometimes it can be a challenge to make considerable progress. So that's what I mean by fumbling through. So I've learned in this past year to prioritize my mental, emotional, and physical health. I was so excited to join something called Cascada here in Portland, Oregon. It just opened in November. It has a gym, but it also has a restaurant. I'm going there actually after this episode. It has a hot spring and a solarium, which is amazing in the winter here in Portland. I feel so grateful for being able to have this and incorporate this opportunity in my life. There are classes that I can take, and I've made connections there, new connections with teachers, and it's been a really, really great balance to how much work that I do, both here on the podcast, through my small business, teaching retreats, social media demands, and then in addition, everything for my MA and working with clients. So I really find that it's brought out and cultivated more wellness in my life, which was sorely lacking. I would have sacrificed that in the past and on many occasions and in previous relationships. And also because I was a mother, and while I had an ex-husband, he was not really truly a partner in a lot of ways emotionally for me. Certainly not a significant role model or emotionally there for my daughter, unfortunately. And so because, where was I going with that? I guess, because that was lacking, I was always doing the work of both of us in that relationship and to my relationship with my daughter. So it wasn't until really she left the house, she moved out, that I really could put the focus back on me. It wasn't until I went through this major divorce, this really difficult divorce, to really put the focus back on me. And really that hadn't happened since I was like 23. So this has been huge. I've had to acknowledge and address patterns that no longer serve me, like silencing my needs to keep a relationship with the person that I love. That was huge. I've used all of these painful experiences as lessons to grow stronger and even more self-aware. I've always really prided myself on self-development and personal development throughout the years, my late teens, through my 20s, whenever I could afford it, definitely through my 30s at certain significant times. And I'm always a student. And so, I feel like you can never know enough. It's not like I'm trying to perfect me. I'm just trying to unravel the things that I've been handed that really aren't mine, that really aren't me at my core, that were passed down to me and handed to me because the people before me were too afraid or too overwhelmed or didn't have the tools to do the work around it. And so they taught it to me and left it to me to do. And so I feel really grateful. I'm not saying it hasn't been hard, but really grateful for the opportunity to be able to do that for everyone in my family, and for everyone that I come in contact with, because that work sends ripples out. I'm a believer of that. The more compassion and love that I can have for me and my experience, the more that I can impact others with compassion and love, because they can feel it, and it's authentic. Okay, where was I? Heartbreak. Yeah, heartbreak. Leaving things that you love. Heartbreak isn't just about relationships. It's about any situation where your needs aren't met. Had plenty of those experiences in this past year. Not easy to walk away from someone you love, something you thought would last, and probably one of the hardest things you'll ever do. But as I was telling my daughter just the other night, it's such a valuable gift to give yourself, to recognize when your needs aren't being met in a relationship, and to have the strength to recognize that you deserve more than what the person in front of you is capable of giving, no matter how painful it is. To have that awareness. Again, at least you know. And you're not pretending. You're not pretending that it's something else, that it's not. I took time this past year to heal from past wounds and recognize unhealthy patterns. I think I mentioned that. And every painful moment that I went through became a stepping stone to a stronger, more self-aware version of myself, me at my core. Let's see. When it comes to improving my relationships, I've worked to become clear about my needs and boundaries in relationships. And I'm not saying that I wasn't clear before, but I feel like the older I get, the more clarity I have around who I am, truly at my core. I'm not trying to be anything than who I am. It gets easier to be who I am out in the world. And so in that recognition, it's so much easier to have boundaries around that. That's what I'm saying. I now recognize when someone's inability to love, commit, or invest in me is not about me, but it's about their own limitations and inability to love themselves. And like I said before, they are doing their best to love me no matter what I know I deserve. And so really accepting people where they are and what they can give. I've learned to avoid relationships where I feel the need to fix, teach, or save the other person. And my year of dating myself taught me to set boundaries and clearly communicate my needs with everybody in my life. And now I only invest in relationships where there's mutual respect and effort. And so the next phase was really around manifesting a better future for myself. And first, that came with a deep belief around having the power to create a life that I deserve. And then aligning my thoughts and my actions with my goals around that. Shifting my mindset, seeing any challenges as opportunities for growth or opportunities to evolve. I've created, that morning meditation that I told you about, or I've created affirmations I'd say about every 2 or 3 weeks, I probably create a set of affirmations to guide and focus me, such as I attract loyal and supportive relationships. Right now, I'm ready to be happy. I have the power to create and transform is something that I have used in the past. I also keep saying I can do it and I deserve it. I've been saying that a lot lately. I remind myself often that my thoughts and actions shape my reality, and I consistently show up for myself every day, no matter what. I just keep showing up for myself. I have this past year, I feng shuied my house in an effort to really change and shift the energy around me each day, because I spend a lot of time there. I work from home. I've built a collective wellness center there called the House of Healing and Love. That's been a 10-year passion project that I have tried to create on multiple occasions. It's been in many stages until I reached this culmination point, and I'm really, really proud of my efforts there. But I did many things to the house, but one of the things that I did was purchase new art for the walls. And one of the things that is in my stairwell that I look at every day, it's simple, it just has a butterfly, but it says, "Do it for you." And I feel like it was Laverne and Shirley. It wasn't really my show. It was my sister's show. They watched it when I was a kid. But I just remember, like, there was something at the beginning of the intro where they, like, I feel like they kissed something on their way into their house. And, like, every time I walk by it, I almost feel like kissing it. It's like my promise or my commitment to myself, just like making the commitment to really date myself. And I'm not saying, like, I haven't gone on dates or spent time with people. I'm not committed. I haven't been committed to anybody except for myself this past year. So dating myself really showed me the power of aligning my actions with my intentions. Back to showing up for myself. And so that's where that confidence comes, and that trust. I've really built so much trust in myself in this past year. And that is invaluable. That's been invaluable. And so that's really been fostering harmony and balance in my life for the first time in probably my entire life. I have more calm and balance. I'm not saying I don't get stressed. I'm not saying that I don't have challenges. I'm not saying that I don't have breakdowns to break through, but I absolutely have more calm. I have more calm in my life because I am in alignment. And I'm not bending myself like I would have in the past to meet other people's needs. And so it's been a very beautiful place to be. I now balance self-care with ambition. I mentioned Cascada, joining Cascada. That's been huge for me. I work out all the time now. And I am pursuing my goals while nurturing my emotional well-being. I feel very, very grateful to be in a cohort. Certainly we don't do it as much as we did in my first semester, but you're in a group. You're always working with each other. You're always practicing on each other. The strategies that you learn through the program. And so, we're counseling each other, and we've gotten to know each other. We have group check-ins every so often, although, like I said, not as much now, but it's kind of like group therapy in ways. So I'm very, very grateful for those relationships, even though they haven't become my intimate circle necessarily. I definitely get intimate in class. People know a lot about me at this point, and I have a lot of support there. I recognize now when to take action and when to pause for reflection. That has also been a huge shift for me. I really take time for myself, and I don't react right away. I protect myself from emotional, getting overridden by my emotions, I will say. I practice healthier boundaries around that. So that reflection has been key. I avoid overextending myself in relationships where I feel drained or unappreciated. That was also very, very hard for me to do in the past, or younger versions of me, because I would have feared losing you or feared what you would have thought about that. So that's been huge. And through trial and error, I've learned that balance is the key to maintaining a fulfilling life. So in conclusion, or to close this one out, I should say that dating myself for this past year wasn't about being alone or being single. It was about learning to love, trust, and prioritize myself. I've built a really strong foundation for every relationship that I'll ever have in the future, because I'm very clear on who I am and what I'm looking for. And that really starts with building that relationship with me. And if there's anything that I'd like for you to take away from hearing me share this, is this: you are the best partner that you will ever have. Invest in yourself, and everything becomes so much easier when you do. All right. That's pretty much where I wanted to leave off. Until next time, thank you so much for watching and listening. I have so much gratitude for my experience in this past year, for all of my experiences actually, and for all of you. So thank you, and I will see you next time.
Thank you so much for tuning in and supporting this podcast. Your presence here means the world to me, and I'm truly grateful for your time and energy. If this conversation resonated with you or sparked any questions, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. I love hearing from each of you. Your insights, experiences, and curiosities always enrich this space. It's important to remember that trauma, often unseen and unacknowledged, can keep us from living fully in our joy. Through my intuitive healing process, I help release the weight of generational trauma, empowering you to reconnect with your true self and experience life in greater harmony. If you feel called to explore this deeper work, I invite you to book a one-on-one intuitive session, or even embark on a personalized journey with the Phoenix Immersion, a 2-day retreat designed to support profound transformation. You can find all the details below. For those who've liked, subscribed, or left comments already, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your engagement means everything, and I'm deeply grateful for the connection we're building in this community. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. I'm excited for all the healing and transformation we'll continue to explore together. As always, I'm forever grateful for you, and I cannot wait to see what unfolds next. Take care, and until next time.